Listen, Jack, I think the one thing to take away from this is that merch is probably going to be significantly discounted here in the next couple months.
Oh my god!
I don't know if I should.
Catherine!
I don't even know. I don't even know if I need to. This is just rude at this point.
Salt on the wound. Jesus.
I thought we were friends, you know? Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 31 of Grid Gals. So we don't have a race this weekend, but upcoming next weekend is the race at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, and we all had the wonderful pleasure of going to that race last year, and so we figured we would recap some of the what's going on in the paddock this week and then talk a little bit about COTA and our experience in Austin last year.
I think compared to a lot of recent weeks, there hasn't really been that much drama. I feel like last week was so loaded between what was honestly mostly FIA drama with the budget cap, you know, just the aftermath of the race in Japan and how the FIA handled that. I feel like that was most of the drama. And then I feel like we're kind of in a holding pattern for some of the drivers who are still waiting to find their seat assignments for next year. But correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I don't think we've had any more news on that front.
I haven't heard anything. And I was expecting the FIA to come out and say what their punishment would be to the teams that went over the budget cap. Haven't heard a peep.
I mean, I'm not surprised. It feels like it's going to take a lot of back and forth before they really finalize their decision there. But, I mean, we're all anxiously waiting that decision. I'm just curious at this point more than anything.
Yeah, I will say the one piece of drama that I think came out of that was Total Wolff came out and said that if Red Bull only gets a fine, that they will be going over the budget cap next year.
That Mercedes will? Or?
Yes.
Well, think about it. Like, if the only penalty for going over the budget cap is more money, those teams have more money.
Yeah.
You know?
So they will.
That seems ineffective.
I agree.
It definitely, in my mind, has to be something that's not monetary.
Yeah, I just think it's like, it's almost pushing the FIA's hand in a direction that I feel like they're not supposed to be involved in the process. You know, I think that was the whole purpose of like what they're trying to do is separation of the team principals and the FIA. And I do think it kind of blurs the line there again.
No, I get that. But I mean, I think it's kind of, you know, you think about like any crime, right? If the penalty for any crime is just a fine, then it's basically legal for rich people.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it's the same thing where like the budget cap was instated to help even the playing field among the big teams with large pockets and those without. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if you went over the budget cap and you get hit with a fine, like, okay, great, I had this money to spend anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not, it doesn't really seem like a problem. I mean, I get what you're saying about Toto actually coming out and putting out like an official statement about it.
Yeah. I agree with what he's saying. I just don't know necessarily that it should be said. Like, I completely logically agree. Like, I feel like that is why the rich get away with things, and it would continue that way if it's just a fine.
He just said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, I guess there isn't no way. I feel like the FIA always manages to shock me with their decisions sometimes. But, yeah, I hope they come out with an answer soon because I've been dying to know.
I was thinking the other day, too, I wonder if the FIA is always under this type of scrutiny where it's always this much drama every year. I know this is, like, the first year that we've, like, been watching like this in this form, but I bet every year the FIA has some big ordeal.
Well, and I think, I mean, you see the way the sport has evolved over the years. You know, there are different technical changes. Like, we're still in the hybrid era. There were different eras of engines. And so I feel like there's always changing regulations, especially from a technical side. And then I think the role of the FIA has grown because of, you know, I think there's just increased scrutiny just in today's day and age with social media and kind of the 24-hour news cycle. Like, everything is so present all the time. Where, I mean, you think about any sport, right? Like, everyone kind of hates the refs.
Yes.
You know, to the point where, like, I mean, you've seen this in hockey, Jack. Like, people get evicted from games. Like, players get evicted, coaches. I've seen parents thrown out of children's hockey games for, like, yelling at the ref. You know, I feel like
so many parents get thrown out. It's embarrassing.
Everyone hates the enforcement. I feel like that's not unique to F1, but I feel like what's unique about F1 is just there's so many rules that govern it, because you have the sporting side, but also the technical side, you know, with the development and construction or whatnot. But also just, like, some of them are really obscure.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of gray in there.
I would be curious to interview someone that's been watching for a really long time and see how the FIA has developed through a fan's eyes.
That would be really cool. We'll have to find somebody.
We'll jot that down.
Yeah, so to all of our listeners, if you're willing to hop on the show and tell us what you think, hit us up.
Good plug.
So more on the social media front, I did see a post from AlphaTauri, and it was Gasly and Yuki in the car doing some content that the drivers are always doing some content for the teams. And it happened to be raining a little bit outside, and Yuki made a comment that the weather was like his heart crying, and Pierre was like, "Oh man, don't make me choke up while you got all the GoPros on me," which, I mean, we were talking about this last week, but I'm so sad that duo is getting broken up officially.
Yes, because he was referring to Gasly potentially looking for another team, and that's why he was saying, like, his heart was crying or something, which is really cute.
Well, and I think of the bromances we've seen in F1. Theirs is truly one of my favorites, because I feel like it's such a fun and kind of unique dynamic. Also, I think just because Yuki has so much spunk. I mean, obviously, like, Max and Daniel, that was an elite bromance. I feel like the Carlos Lando one, like, that was cute, but it was a different type of back and forth.
Yeah.
The Pierre Yuki one, it's just fun.
It is.
And they only have nice things to say about each other, and I feel like they haven't had, except for, like, maybe this past weekend, had any issues within the drivers. And even, like, this past weekend, I feel like Pierre's issue was more with the team than with Yuki himself.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll be sad. I mean, there's some, I feel like there'll be new romances that emerge on the scene next year. We'll have to wait and see.
I want to see how Lando likes his new team.
I don't know if they're going to get... You heard it here first. I said this in a prior episode. I just don't think Lando's going to put up with any of his shit, and he seems kind of high maintenance.
Really? Lando or Piastri?
I don't think Lando's going to put up with any of Piastri's shit.
Huh.
I think Piastri's going to come in there and feel like he has, like... I don't know. Maybe it's just the connotation from how he reacted to the switch, and obviously don't think he handled that the best, so maybe it was just out of character for him. But I feel like he's giving me a little bit of George Russell-esque vibes.
Yeah, when you're
You know?
talking about him, I feel like the way that you talk about Piastri is very similar to the way that you talk about George. Kind of like that entitled...
Because he came off that way, like,
Yeah.
about the announcement. Like, I think that he should have totally felt, obviously excited for it, but the way that he came out about it just felt, like, very entitled.
I think in the next season we should talk about Piastri and how he ended up driving for McLaren, because I was reading some interesting articles about his relationship with Alpine and how that kind of dissolved, and it sounded really awkward and uncomfortable, and like he might have addressed it, but they didn't react the best way. So I want to, like, reread the article and see what actually ended up being true, but there's a lot of, like, he said
He
I
said, he
guess.
said? Well, I mean, they almost took him to court.
Yeah.
And they even said they were thinking about dissolving their young driver program because it wasn't worth the drama. And the fact that they were like, we invested so much in this person, and for him to just turn his back on us. And, you know, Alpine came out very strongly against him, especially, I mean, I get it. At this point, you know, he's not just like a 19, 20-year-old kid. He is somebody that they have invested a significant amount of money and time developing. And I don't know, it seemed messy. And I would love to dig in a little more in the future and get into that one.
Same with De Vries and Mercedes, because he's been with Mercedes for the longest time and now going to AlphaTauri.
That's true.
That's a pretty combative dynamic too between Mercedes and Red Bull. So I would think that Mercedes isn't very happy about that either, but maybe a little bit more tight-lipped than Alpine was.
Because I get it if Alpine wasn't offering him a seat. Like, everyone would understand. But it's like they were also offering him a seat, so that makes it even more awkward.
And it was within his contract for him to take the seat.
And Alpine's doing better than McLaren.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, traditionally not the case. Well, I don't know if that's true. But I guess for whatever reason, I feel like McLaren seems to be the move that more drivers would want to make over Alpine, even though I feel like their results have been better this season and in certain seasons in the past. But
one piece of drama that I did hear, I just remembered thinking about that, during this fight of Alpine and McLaren for, fourth? Lando has been saying, I'm surprised that we're doing better than Alpine because they have a faster car. They just must be making a lot of big errors.
Really?
Which I think is kind of fair to say. Like, I think Alpine maybe does have a faster car, but they've been messing up on, like, the technical side or something. And Alpine has come out with a lot of statements directed at Lando Norris. Pretty aggressive. So I wonder how that relationship's going to go in the future, because it's not the type of character you see Norris as.
No.
So for, like, team principals to be directly saying, I don't know why he has an opinion about this, or, like, pretty aggressive statements towards him was a little shocking.
Well, and, I mean, in my mind, it's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black, because I think Ocon and Alonso have delivered. I think we've seen some actually really good results from them this season, which is why Alpine is where they are. But I don't think the same can be said for the McLaren drivers, plural.
Yeah, because I feel that almost feels to me like he's protecting himself in that statement. He's trying to be like, oh, they have a better car. That's why I'm not able to deliver better results than them.
Yeah.
Versus like, but when you look at it from how he said that, I can understand how Alpine would be like, wait a second. Why are you trying to call out our strategy here? It sounded like something that he said in the moment, and he didn't think about how that would come off from the outside perspective.
Yeah, that's probably more what it was. Because I feel like, as a team, both Ocon and Alonso deliver more consistently than the team of Ricciardo and Norris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, I think Norris largely delivers. I mean, again, you know, we've talked about this. Ricciardo clearly hasn't delivered to where he would like to this season. And granted, we've also seen issues with the Alpine's reliability.
Mm-hmm. They had a double DNF in Singapore, for instance.
Yeah. I'd be interested when that quote went out.
Yeah. We'll have to circle back on that one.
But speaking of Daniel delivering,
I mean, I thought it was incredible play by him that he was going to drop his merch on the same day that McLaren dropped their merch. I mean, the devil works hard, but Daniel Ricciardo's marketing team, that was a nice little
And
little
Danny
drop.
Rick has some good merch. I mean, McLaren has good merch in general. I feel like that whole team really knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But Danny's got some great stuff.
Oh yeah, full like Austin themed merch, like very Yellowstone, Montana vibes. And he went on a trip to Montana earlier in the year, and you could definitely tell that they did some like photo merch pics during that trip for sure. But it's like, you know, the king of Austin, he's going out for this, I don't know, it's sad to say, his maybe last race at COTA, so he had to have some good merch to roll up to the paddock in.
Listen, Jack, I think the one thing to take away from this is that merch is probably going to be significantly discounted here in the next couple months.
Oh my god!
I don't know if I should... I don't even know if I need to... This is just rude at this point.
Salt on the wound. Jesus.
I thought we were friends, you know? I already had a whole, like, heartbreak zone. Just, like, when I turn around, just dig the knife in deeper. All right.
I mean, the friend in me hurts hearing that, but the budget girly in me is like, you're so right.
I did kind of think about that. McLaren merch specifically. I don't think Danny Rick's merch is gonna like go down because I think if you're buying from him, but I think the McLaren stuff, I was like, do I buy some? Even though
Well, here's the thing: is it going to be discounted in the future, or is it going to be limited edition? You're not going to be able to get any more. And everybody loves Danny, so the prices go up. You know, is there going to be like a sick Danny Rick resale market just popping off on eBay?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Probably.
get your limited edition number 3s while you can. Okay, we're done. I'm so sorry.
Wow, I thought this was a safe space.
But I will give you that McLaren has much better merch than I feel like any
lot
of the
of-
other
yeah.
teams, almost to the fact that, like, I would consider a little bit of a move.
I think the only other team that even comes close, and again is still a step down, is Mercedes.
Yeah, their
Oh, yeah.
hats. Their hat game is
Yeah.
incredible.
They have great colors, too.
They do.
Ferraris is fine.
It's classic.
It's very classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing special. It's nothing to write home about, you know. I feel like it's been pretty consistent.
That's how I feel Red Bulls is too. Pretty even less though. I feel like they have
Yeah.
less variability in the
Yeah.
the merch that they offer.
And they have so much they could do. Like,
So
it's
true.
an energy drink company. Like, you could do so many cool things.
Yeah, I don't understand. I feel like the Red Bull merch is definitely a missed opportunity. And AlphaTauri, that's literally a fashion brand. It is
Yeah.
Red Bull's fashion brand. They do have some good stuff. Like, I feel like they do a good job with their social media. The drivers always look well put together in their, like,
Yeah, they
internal
do.
merch. But externally, also, like, maybe it's just because they're the junior team. Like, who wants to wear AlphaTauri merch?
I would wear AlphaTauri merch.
I have an AlphaTauri flag
What? Since when?
since my birthday. David.
Okay. Well, I guess I stand corrected. I guess I'm the only one at this table who wouldn't wear it. Well, not that I wouldn't, but I wouldn't spend my own money on AlphaTauri merch.
Yeah, I wouldn't go out of my way probably, but I would wear it. Our AlphaTauri is up there in teams of merch I would wear before, probably in top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
So speaking of Austin, it might be fun to walk through some fun facts about the track and then talk about some of the tips and tricks for attending COTA.
Yeah, I definitely think that we learned a lot. But COTA's a cool track.
COTA's cool, and it's one of the only tracks that is a purpose facility track. So it has, like, MotoGP, it has NASCAR, it obviously has Formula One. It's the only one in the US. There's other across Europe. It's a beautiful track, I would say, too. At least being there in person. Maybe we'll change our minds once we see Montreal, but I really appreciate this track.
Yeah, that's true, because Miami, I mean, I don't even know if you can call it a street race. It isn't a parking lot. Like,
That is embarrassment to our country.
let's be honest. Actually,
It's
no.
on brand.
It feels very American to have
Yeah.
a race in a parking lot. And
Yep.
Vegas is going to actually be a street race, so
Ugh.
that's true. It's really the only...
So exciting.
I'm dying to go to that one.
I feel like it's going to cost $10,000 to go, and I'm
Yeah.
debating.
Miami is already insane.
Yeah.
Tickets start at like $1,900.
What?
Again, for a parking lot.
Ugh. It's obscene.
For next year?
Yeah,
Ew.
at least that's what I was hearing.
God.
I mean-
I don't think I would go until they figure their stuff out, because I've heard getting to the track is an absolute nightmare too. Not that COTA was a lot better, but I heard even more horror stories about the shuttle situation and, like, getting to the track itself.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, do you want to talk us through what brought us to COTA for the first time?
Yeah, so we mentioned this on one of our earlier episodes, but our decision to go to COTA was a little bit of a spur of the moment. You know, keep in mind, this is still very much in the height of COVID. We've been locked in the house for months, you know, haven't really done anything or really seen a bunch of people in about a year at the point where tickets go on sale, because they went on sale 6 months before the actual race, so April of 2021. So, you know, we've been in the pandemic for roughly a year. We're getting a little stir crazy. And we'd started watching Drive to Survive not that long ago. I think, Jack, you'd maybe seen, what, 1 episode by this point?
Yeah, maybe two tops.
Catherine and I were like maybe halfway through the first season, 3/4 generously. And we were like, you know what? We need something to look forward to. It's 6 months from now. It's outside. Let's do it. Like, let's go to Austin. It'll be fun. And also, you know, it is now October. It's getting cold here in Chicago. The thought of being somewhere warm sounded really nice. And so I think it was like a random Tuesday.
Yeah, and we kind of lucked out with those, right? Like, we didn't even know they were going on sale, but we just checked and we're like, okay, it's literally next week.
Yeah, because I think it was while you and I were watching an episode that I Googled it on my phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no way. So I set a reminder. We're all working from home at this point, and this is when we all still live together. And I remember trying to buy the tickets, logging on to, because they were through F1, through the official website, because I was like, I am not getting all the way to Austin just to get scammed.
Ugh.
No way. Especially because we had never been to a race before. I didn't want to take any chances. So, and the best prices are from the source.
For sure.
So we're at F1's website, and I think I had it on my phone, my laptop. You had it on your phone, your laptop, and it was so busy. The site was so overwhelmed. We're like running back and forth between each other's rooms. Poor Jack is like actually on a call. Like she's working because, you know, this is the middle of the day. We have jobs. And I'm like running back and forth to Catherine like, is yours loading? Is yours loading? And I knew I had a meeting coming up. Like, because there was some sort of deadline. I had to get on a call. It's not like we could just do this all afternoon. And my phone wasn't working. Catherine, like neither of yours were working. Finally, my laptop loaded. And then once you're in the room, it's like you have 10 minutes to complete your purchase or whatever. And the site was lagging. Like, so I was getting so stressed out. And then on the side, once we're in the room, we're trying to Google the different like grandstands and the turns and where to sit and what's the difference between general admission and like an actual grandstand seat. Are we doing all 3 days? And so we've got 10 minutes and we're like crunching numbers furiously. And then at this point, we know Jack's on a call. And more than likely, she's on video. But we're like, do we do it? I mean, these are not inexpensive tickets. Granted, COTA was nothing like Miami's. I think it was like $300 for the weekend or something. But still, I mean, that's not nothing.
And like to spend someone else's money without their approval. Like,
Is this when you army crawled on my floor?
sure did.
Well, yeah, because we're like, we can't just buy this because it's not just the ticket. It's the flight to Austin. It's the hotel. It's the whole deal. And mind you, she's watched like one episode. Like, Catherine and I are for sure into it. Jack's kind of, you know, not on the fence because I feel like you didn't even know enough to like.
Yeah, I didn't even really know. But it's funny there. So my office in our old apartment, you could like. You couldn't see someone enter the room unless they were standing. So Catherine like creeps up the stairs and like army crawls on my floor, and I'm hearing that this is happening, but I'm like on a call, so I'm like just sitting there like, you know, like, hey, we're buying Austin tickets. You in?
We only had 10 minutes. It had to be done.
It was like, and I talked about this on the first episode, but I get a little bit of FOMO, you know? And so I'm like, all right, you guys really like this. I mean, I probably would like it. I mean, I trust you guys in a lot of decisions, and at this point we do a lot of things together, and I'm like, I don't want to miss out. This sounds like a lot of fun. So, I mean, that was part of the decision, and then started to actually watch the show more. We watched some races, got really into the sport. Really glad I went at the end of the day, but I put a lot of trust and a couple $100 on the line there.
And for how nervous we were, I'm glad that it turned out. Because I remember walking into your room and the apartment we were living in, the sun would hit your room midday and it would become a heater. I mean,
I would bake.
Yeah. I remember because you would have to like work in a sports bra for like half the day because it was so
Yeah, if
hot.
I didn't have calls, I like didn't have a shirt on. I had my window open all winter.
Yeah.
Like it would be 10 degrees outside and my window was fully open because also just where the vents were in my room. Again, so I'm like already sweating from nerves. My room is probably 85 degrees.
It's awful. And we're like, we have 10 minutes, the site's lagging. Like, no, that was the only device we could get to work. It ended up working. Thank God. So I would say from that takeaway, use a laptop. Don't use a mobile device.
Don't use your phone. Plan ahead of time and have backup devices.
Yes.
If you've got a friend with another laptop, queue it up. Get ready.
And now F1's site has like a waiting room. So they won't let everyone in to buy the tickets at the same time, which I think was the issue when we first did it, because they didn't have this like waiting room, because so many people would get on and try to buy at the same time that it would just crash. Because we would add it to our cart.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't check out.
It was terrifying.
So stressful. I'm like, I probably purchased these tickets 6 times. Like, I've tried to at least.
Yeah, like I'm gonna have to call my credit card company and like report fraud because I'm not paying for 8 versions of these same tickets. Well, and I think the other wild thing is, again, at this point, because Drive to Survive had come out and so many people like us got into it during COVID, I don't think they were prepared for the amount of North American traffic that wanted to purchase tickets for this race. And so I think, you know, obviously they've changed. It's a much better experience now buying tickets, but yeah, it was a little chaotic, really fun. And mind you, you purchased these tickets 6 months before. So we buy them in April. And then what? When are we really planning? Probably like August, maybe September. We're actually, you know, getting the hotels because we kind of waited a little too long.
Yeah.
We definitely got it earlier than that.
Yeah?
We were like midsummer, for sure.
You're right. It was probably June, July when we really planned the trip. But even then, I feel like we were a little behind the ball in terms of hotels that were available and whatnot.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, the other kicker that, again, in this 10-minute frantic window that I didn't remember that was very important was I had a really good friend's wedding that weekend.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about this.
And, you know, obviously people send out wedding invites like a year ahead of time. Okay, so yes, I'm buying these tickets 6 months ahead of time, but I already knew I had a wedding to go to, and it was a very dear friend. I'm obviously not skipping this wedding, but I didn't remember that. And so I bought tickets for the whole weekend. And then, I don't know, somehow it comes up. I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm like, oh my God, I not only have to be in Austin that weekend, I have to go back to Michigan for a wedding. The wedding's not even in Chicago where I live. And so thank God the wedding is Friday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, also great. You get a great deal when you have your wedding on a Friday. Also great for your dumb friends who apparently don't know how to plan. And so these ladies did it right and were able to experience the whole weekend. I had an incredibly chaotic. I flew out I think I left Detroit at like 5 a.m. on Saturday. Got to Austin by noon. I think I left the wedding, at a pretty reasonable hour, maybe like midnight, but still, I showed up to Austin dead on my feet. So if I could do it again, I would plan a little bit better, but it was so much fun. I'm still really glad we all went.
And I'm happy with the tickets we got, because I feel like that is another thing we should discuss too, because we were kind of confused on like GA versus grandstands and also what grandstand to choose. And now, of course, there's like a bunch of breakdowns of like the different corners to sit at and what that means. And we kind of know just from watching races, like if we want to be on a straight or a tight corner and where that corner falls on the track and all of that. But grandstands, I would say, was a good choice for us. But GA also seems like a lot of fun and a lot more freedom, because at least the way they did it in COTA, you could go to any of the GA sections around the track. So you weren't limited to one spot, but it did fill up. And I feel like if you're gonna do GA, you have to like come prepared, like with chairs and like things to set out to like claim your section, and also just to be comfortable sitting on the ground for hours.
And I feel like if you're going to do GA, it helps to have a bigger group.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be there for hours. You're going to cycle in and out of getting food, going to the bathroom, grabbing drinks, just like wanting to stretch and get up and walk around. Because there's a lot of other things going on. It's almost like a fair or a festival in that there's so many other things happening. You know, there actually were, I think, a couple of rides.
Yeah, there were rides. There was performers.
Yeah.
Each night.
So there's a lot going on, and I feel like if you're going to do GA, having a bit of a bigger crowd with you to, again, claim the space and keep the space is probably a really good idea.
Yeah, because if you want a good spot, especially on Sunday, we noticed the difference between attendance each of the days. Friday for practice was obviously the least attended. Saturday for qualifying was a lot more attended, but the race itself, race day, was insane. Getting there, getting to the track, people like no other around that area and you could tell the people that had a good spot and a place to see had been there for a while.
Yeah.
And we got there pretty early, and there were already people like flooding the main general admission areas.
I would say that's the one good thing about the grandstands is having a seat that you know is yours, you can always come back to. The one thing that really sucked about our seats, no shade.
None.
Absolutely none.
None. And how hot was it in Austin?
It was like 80s and humidity, 80s, 90s, and a ton of humidity. It was brutal.
Yeah,
I've never sweat so much in my life.
about to say that.
I was vile. Like, when we got back after the race,
The peel clothes off my body.
I debated never
disturbing.
wearing those clothes again.
Yep.
Because I was so disgusted.
Yeah. So be prepared to sweat. The other thing that I think we realized once we got there that I would do differently next time was having a radio and headphones.
Yes.
Because you can't hear the announcers, you can't hear the commentary. They have big screens, so you can see the race beyond just the part of the track that you're at. Because, I mean, your visibility is obviously limited to what you can see from your seats or wherever you're sitting. But you can't really hear. I mean, the cars are loud, and hearing, it's kind of like going to a concert, right? The actual quality of sound is very different than if you listen to a studio recording. But it's being there. It's the energy. It's feeling the bass. Same thing with the cars. It's hearing them. It's seeing them. It's like smelling the rubber on the track. It was fun. I mean, maybe not smelling everybody sitting around you because, like I said, gross. But, still really fun. Lots of energy, exciting. But you can't hear. And, I can't really hear anyway. And that's, we talk about this during our race recaps every week. We love the commentary. A lot of enjoyment that I get from watching on the broadcast is, first of all, Sky Sports or Sky News, whatever, they have amazing commentators. They are very informative, they're interesting, they're engaging, and you don't get any of that if you don't come prepared with the radio.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Because I don't even think they are even blaring the commentary for the majority of the race. I think they did at the beginning and announcing drivers and stuff. And then you'll see something on the screen because it is the televised race that they're broadcasting everywhere. And you're like, what happened? I don't know. And you're kind of asking around, and one person in the crowd will have a radio, obviously knew what they were doing. This was not their first rodeo by any means. So yeah, definitely would be something that I would recommend we'll have to get that in order for Montreal.
Yeah, I would say the other thing we have to make sure we have down and that we didn't have down for COTA was to memorize all the drivers' numbers. Because that's the only way you can distinguish the cars on track.
Yep.
Between obviously you can tell the teams apart, but the driver numbers are kind of difficult to spot on the cars.
Mercedes especially, you could never spot the numbers on the Mercedes. The other cars you could pick them out. After Mercedes, we had to just rely on the color of the camera on top of the...
Yeah, on Lewis's car, because it is yellow.
Yeah.
So I'd say the driver numbers are good to know when you go.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something where, especially when you're watching on the broadcast, I can name some of the driver numbers, but especially midfield and below, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we did, to get to and from the track, we did the shuttle, and I would recommend doing that again. They have a couple different shuttle locations, but we took the one from downtown. And if you stay downtown, that's the best way to get to the track. Getting to COTA off of the expressway, there's really only 2 routes to get there. So you're in heavy traffic for a while until you get to a point where the shuttle buses can go in a specialized lane. So you're kind of stuck in traffic. And we left our hotel pretty early on race day. And we thought we were on the earlier side. I would have, looking back on it, I would leave even earlier than that. I think we left our hotel at 8 a.m. on Sunday to get to the track. It took us over 2 hours to get to the track. It was kind of cool. We saw a convoy and one of the drivers getting escorted to COTA, which was really cool. But
besides the fact that it was Stroll.
I was about to say, I was like, it was really cool, but it was Lance Stroll.
It was definitely Stroll. But we still sat in traffic for a while, and I'm very glad that we chose to go that early, but I would go even earlier next time because it still took us over 2 hours to get to the track, and that was leaving very on the earlier side. And if you're in GA, you need to get there even earlier, I think, to get a good spot.
Yeah, because we thought we were leaving enough time definitely we're cutting it close. And then there's nothing more stressful. Like, this is what you paid for. And then to, like, be late, especially, like, the first couple laps are, like, really exciting. I would also say take a bathroom break before you start your journey to the track. Because we were, like, on this shuttle, or we were even in an Uber. I think we ended up calling an Uber instead of taking the time to go and get a shuttle. And we were on
Friday.
Yeah, on Friday. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. And we drank a full coffee beforehand, drank a bunch of water because we were trying to stay hydrated. Bad idea.
Yeah, Friday we took an Uber to the track, and by far the least attended day. And it was still crazy getting in there. And I ended up exiting the Uber at one point and going to... I did.
What?
There's parking spaces and they have, like, porta potties. So
I never heard this.
Yeah, I literally was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it all the way to the track.
Jack was about to pee your pants.
That's
why I say this.
Yeah, waiting in that line. Yeah, so I exited the vehicle and peed in the porta potty, and, like, we didn't really even move that much, so I, like, ended up just, like, hopping right back in the Uber, because I was like, Catherine, I'll meet you at the track. I mean, we weren't that far outside of the track at that point, but I'm like, I'm not peeing in this Uber. Like, it's just...
totally fair.
I'm going to go pee in the porta potty right over there. And the lady who was manning that parking area, because they have a lot of parking sites that aren't, like, affiliated with the racetrack around there that sell parking spaces, was so kind. I was like, do you mind if I use your porta potty? She's like, absolutely. Of course, it's the cleanest it's going to be all weekend. It's spotless at that point. It's Friday morning.
I will say, COTA had it together when it came to bathrooms.
Yeah,
they did.
I mean, it was porta potties, but there were plenty. We never waited that long in line. No. And you needed to stay hydrated. You really did. I think that was the other thing that you guys were really smart about doing. They bought these, like, souvenir Yetis that they used all weekend, and they held the ice. And I had some sort of bottle, but it was not insulated. And having cold water with ice, especially when you're just sitting in the sun dying, that was, if I could do it again. And granted, I got there Saturday. It's not like I got there late, but a lot of the merch was already sold out. So I guess if there's anything that catches your eye and you're there all weekend, get it Friday. Because I think almost all of the merch sold out throughout the weekend. It was ridiculous.
They let you bring in any cup. I think they do also let you bring in coolers to an extent. Don't quote me on that one. But they definitely let you bring in, like, your own Yetis, any type of thing that you would want to use to refill water. So would definitely recommend bringing some sort of insulated.
Would also recommend finding a bartender, making friends with the bartender, and sticking with the same bartender all weekend, because we found a friend, and boy, did we take advantage of that.
He was also very kind, and I feel like we tipped him very well, so he's appreciative. And we weren't like, people get rude. People get very rude. But we stuck to one guy. We were always tipping him really well, but he helped the gals out.
Great return on investment there. I'm trying to think. Any other tips and tricks? Getting out of COTA. Okay, so the traffic getting into COTA is already one thing where I think, you guys experienced this Friday in the Ubers. The shuttle is hype because at a certain point you do get to bypass a lot of that traffic in the shuttle. Getting out. What a nightmare. Like, we took the shuttle back Saturday, and it wasn't that bad. Granted, it was Saturday, but Sunday, after the race was over, we opted not to take the shuttle. Catherine's cousin was also there. They had driven, and so we went with them. Ladies, how long were we in that parking lot? Like, not even moving, not even in the car.
And we stayed after the race for traffic to die down, too. I think we just, like, kind of hung out with, like, the parking lot people.
We made friends with everyone around.
Tailgating. So
because we weren't going anywhere. Like, traffic, like, it was at a standstill. I think we must have been there for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I would say conservatively, like, probably 3 to 4 hours after the race.
Because even when we took off, there was still a lot of traffic. And we had been standing around for probably 2 hours.
Because we watched cars that were parked near us, like, try to get in line to exit. And, I mean, they just basically parked, like, 50 feet away in the line and didn't even move.
Yeah.
I would recommend not booking a flight out that evening if you can help it. Because trying to time, if we had flights out that evening, I would have been stressed. Trying to get back downtown, to then get back to the airport.
And you miss out on the Sunday celebrations. So going out in Austin is really fun any weekend, I would say. Just a really cool city. But going out after an F1 race is also very fun because it's a bunch of fans too. And then you could, and we did, come across one of the drivers while we were out.
Well, it's the one time of the weekend everybody on the teams, drivers included, actually get to cut loose and celebrate. And boy, did they.
Because this was at the very end of our night, I would say. We were going back to our hotel, and I noticed this pack of people and this man being carried, and people following him. So I was like, who is this? Like, he has such like a crowd with him, like such a posse. None other but Kimi Räikkönen, his last season, last time racing in COTA, being carried back by one of his friends to his hotel room. I mean, it's what I expected, and so it was the perfect moment.
Is there a better celebrity sighting than Kimi Räikkönen blacked out on Rainy Street?
To the day I die, I'll never forget.
Truly iconic. I think as we're like shoveling like fries like from some halal cart into our mouths, we're like, oh my god, it's Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi! Definitely a highlight of the weekend.
A perfect way to end the weekend.
Thanks everybody for joining us again this week and listening as we recapped our COTA experience. Feel free to hit us up for more tips and tricks if you're headed to COTA yourself, or if you just want to let us know how your experience is. We would absolutely love to hear from you. You can visit our website at gridgals.com. We have links to all of our socials, past episodes, and again, remember, wherever you get your podcasts, like, subscribe, and leave us a review. We would love to hear from you.
And that's a checkered flag for this episode. We'll see you back on the grid next week.